Periodontics was not one of my favorite topics in dental school. And orthodontics was another one that I had trouble with. And later on, much later on, I figured out, looking back on all of it, as to why exactly that was. The problem with periodontics as it was taught was that it was a number of lectures that seemed to be around histology. And for those who don't know what histology is, it is the microscopic view of tissues, looking under microscopes at muscle cell and connective tissue and skin tissue, which we call epithelium. All of those things are important and scientifically important, but as lectures they can be really difficult to stay awake listening to. And that seemed to be periodontics. The other problem with it was that when we went to the clinic to learn, we could only do so much. We could work on cleaning teeth, and if we were lucky, we would get an opportunity to watch somebody else do some surgical procedures. But at that level in our training, we were very new, and there was so much to learn. It would be difficult to describe how little we could get in any of those topics that we now look back on, and all dentists know a lot more than they did in dental school, simply because it is the nature of the training, and you have to go through that in order to move from somebody who knows absolutely nothing to being able to safely treat patients with at least one or two good ways to do it that were taught in dental school. And the reality out in the world is that there are probably hundreds of ways to do things. And you don't have the time in 4 years to learn it all. And the economics of the problem does not create something where we can say, oh, well, let's just be in training for another 10 years. You have to get out at some point, and you have to keep learning. The problem with periodontics was I learned some skills and I learned some concepts in dental school, and that was it. Then when I went off to a residency following dental school, a 1-year general practice residency in the Air Force, we went back through it again. We went back through every specialty of dentistry. I went back through root canals and how to make dentures and all the rest of it. And one of those things was periodontics. And the interesting thing about periodontics in the residency was it took longer, meaning that we would have courses and lectures just like we did before, but then we would start on patient care, but the patient care didn't end in 3 months, where other parts of dentistry we could do those. You could go through the training of doing a root canal and do root canals on patients and be through with that whole section in about 3 months, and you've gotten everything that they could teach you in the residency in that amount of time. But it couldn't be done in periodontics, and the reason for that was there needed to be time for healing to occur. And so you would do procedures just like I did in dental school, but in dental school you're so focused at trying to graduate that you don't really care what's happening on a microscopic level, a thoughtful level, because everything is contingent upon whether or not you can graduate. That's what you're focused on. But in the residency, there isn't that. You're already a dentist, and you're already actually earning a living, because I was an active duty captain. So I didn't have this stress and strain of what I had under dental school, the pressures of, boy, I've got to graduate. I can't afford not to. And And anything that's keeping me back, that's what I'm focused on. Now in this residency, I could treat patients and talk to instructors and people who really were knowledgeable, just like the instructors in my dental school. But I didn't have time to go and have chats with them. I could in my residency. And so what I learned was that when patients would follow instructions and when the procedures were done well, that there was a response in the tissues that I could see. But I couldn't see it the next day, and I couldn't see it the day after that. It would take a number of weeks for a number of processes to occur, healing to occur. And we'll talk about that later in more detail. But it's then when I began to understand and appreciate how important it was to take the time and to study something over a period of time to really appreciate how powerful and beneficial it is. So, I didn't like periodontics in dental school. I began to awaken to it in a residency where I had more time to think and to process. And if I were to transfer that over to this podcast with you, I would say it's the same thing. A lot of the things that we learn, or we're in a hurry to learn, don't really settle in very quickly. And it is the repetition, going back over things over and over, that really allow things to sink in and allow us to essentially think about them in ways that make them more than just facts. They become concepts, principles, and things that we can now apply to the principles of healing, the principles of living, that they become deeper and more meaningful than they were at first. So, I'll leave you there today. Take care.